I'm going to go ahead with the meeting beginning ritual.
起立，面向佛堂，参加三鞠躬、一鞠躬、再鞠躬、三鞠躬，参加各位点传世一鞠躬，开班一鞠躬，请坐下。Please be seated.
Let's dive back into Tao Te Ching, Chapter 4. So, what did we talk about last time, and where were we? Where did we leave off? So, Chapter 4, we divided it up into 3 sections. And as I pointed out last time, the middle section is a collection of 4 lines, and all 4 lines have the same form. They have 3 characters each, and the middle character is all the same. And then before that, in section 1, that's the introduction. And after that, section 3, that's the conclusion. So last time we were able to get through like the first half of it. So we ended up on line number 4, unravels the knot. And one way to understand the meaning unravels the knot. There's the external meaning, the meaning in terms of the physical universe or the material plane. There's also the meaning, the other level of meaning, which is internal, the meaning that is the Tao teaching to the self, to the true self. And when it comes to unraveling the knots, one way to think of it is to resolve a dispute. So a knotty problem, a knotty issue is when people are in conflict with one another. So contention, to unravel the knots is to resolve contention. Another part of it, to unravel the knots, is to reduce complexity. So the more you knot something up, the more complex that thing is. To unravel the knots is to simplify the complexity, to let that knot be unraveled. Okay. So for all the slides that we visited last time, I'll just present them shortly without the advancing of the bullet points one by one. So to unravel the knots is to reduce or resolve complexity. It applies to contention because when you have contention in your life, boy, does that ever make life complicated. And this is what we talked about it last time. To resolve contention, number 2, reduce complexity, to simplify in every aspect of life. And obviously, when you are able to simplify away a contentious event, a dispute with someone else, that brings about more harmony in your day-to-day living. In the same way, when you have less clutter to deal with, it introduces more harmony, more simplicity in your life. And what I pointed out last time was that even though this idea is basic to the Tao, there's resistance that people will have in Eastern culture. Oftentimes, I encounter people paying lip service to the concept of simplicity, but not actually do it. In the Western world, what I see is people resisting the idea of simplification. As I mentioned, I have a bunch of friends, and when they see these articles on decluttering, on reducing complexity in the home by throwing away things that you don't need anymore, boy, they resist in a visceral way. They really don't like that idea at all, and they spend a lot of time in discussions describing how they hate the very idea of simplifying their lives. So what they're usually saying is that they need everything in their home in order to make that home feel like a home. They want the home to feel lived in. They want the home to feel like it's not sterile. So if you simplify away too much, definitely they will get the feeling that the home is no longer a place that is fit for living. So I actually get just the very opposite impression myself. I agree with these guys, Joshua and Ryan, the minimalists. It's not about reducing in terms of having less clutter, less worries, etc. I think people tend to react negatively when they're faced with the word less. So as Joshua and Ryan have pointed out, it's actually about more time, more freedom, more room, more elbow room to move around, more room in which to breathe and be yourself. So I previously spoke of Joshua's experience, what led to his epiphany on simplifying his life. Then we got into a discussion on things we no longer need. So I pointed out before that we don't really need optical discs anymore, and by that I mean both DVDs and CDs. Reason being, most of us are transitioning into like an MP3 player, like an iPod, and even iPod that used to seem so advanced, used to seem so high-tech once upon a time. That's actually becoming less and less of a thing now, in my opinion, and that's because of two things. Number one, everybody has a smartphone now with applications that do just as good a job as the original iPod in playing MP3 files. Number two, there's an increasing number of music services available where you don't really even need to have MP3 files that you store on your own little devices. You simply call up whatever kind of music you want to listen to. So I know this year for my birthday, I am godfather to a couple of little kids, and so they decided to give me a birthday present, which was a smart speaker. So the smart speaker has network connection. It's supposed to connect to Amazon services through my router. So once you get that all set up, it connects to Amazon. It's going into my Amazon Prime account. So all that I have to do is to tell the smart speaker what I want to listen to, and it will play it. And it will accept. I don't need to type it out on a keyboard. I just tell it because of Alexa. So Alexa is the intelligent assistant. Does a pretty good job in recognizing what people say. I would say maybe 90% comprehension. It's better than Siri, in my opinion. People get into arguments with Siri. No, Siri, that's not what I meant. Don't play that song. Stop. So Siri was the first intelligent assistant. It was so revolutionary when it came out, but I think since that time, other people have leapfrogged Apple's technology. So now Alexa actually, in my opinion, does a better job. So every day, for me and Janice, when we're getting ready to have dinner, she presses a button on the smart speaker and then she will say, play music. And that's all it takes. And what Amazon has done through data mining technologies called big data, is collected all this information, all the information from the past in terms of our listening patterns. So all you have to do now for us is just to say play music, and it automatically knows based on the time of day, based on our listening preferences, what would be the appropriate music to play for dinner. So it'll just go ahead and pick, it'll select the music for us. So a lot of the music, we don't have the MP3 for that. We don't feel like we need to go out and get the MP3. For those of you who have had, MP3 songs you purchased from different sources, or maybe copied them from friends and so forth, I think you know what I'm talking about when I say that you listen to that one song, 10 times, 20 times, 30 times. After a while, you pretty much don't want to listen to it anymore. So it's just sitting there anyway. So in that context, the music service makes a lot of sense. So So for me, definitely, I don't need the DVDs and CDs anymore. I know from my friends, they're holding on to it, and they will say things like, over my dead body, will you take away my music collection? That's in music, and of course, music buffs will also pull out the CD collection. They will open up the CD cases lovingly, and then they will pull out the liner notes and say that, well, if I were to transition to MP3, where am I going to get all this great information, interesting information about the music that I own? Of course, I can point out that they probably haven't read most of the liner notes, but that they will get around to it someday. And if they need to get information about a particular piece of music, a composer, or a music group, an orchestra, that information is readily available on the internet. But if I do that, there will be a lot more contention in my life. I start getting into arguments with everybody, so I just remain quiet and let it be. So it's the same thing with cassette tapes. Even people who still hold on to the music CD collections, they would all agree with me that we don't need cassette tapes anymore. Usually it's because the quality of tape recording is not that great. But definitely one thing that I used to do as a teenager that nobody will do anymore is to make mixtapes, So I have my audio tape cassette collection with, awesome mix, rocking mix, party mix, and this and that mix. Well, nobody does that anymore because it's not necessary. In fact, there's actually specific applications out there for your smartphone, software on the computer. If you use a computer for that, it will actually intelligently assemble a playlist for you. So the problem that I had with playlists before is that they get played out just like music. After a while, I don't want to touch them anymore. But if I have an intelligent software, like an application, assemble a group of music to me, that actually works out pretty well. So physical books and periodicals, we talked about this last time. I don't own physical books and magazines, comic books anymore. So people that knew me from before, who have seen my collection from before, they're all really surprised. But I am actually pretty happy being without the big, bulky books that used to occupy a lot of space in my home. So looking at the first three entries, I would say that there's a disappearing act. I had a lot of them. They are not there anymore. I had a lot of books, periodicals, magazines. They're not there anymore. So a lot of it had been consolidated into just the smartphone, the cell phone. And in time, perhaps the cell phone will disappear too. So the next item, list, calendar, Rolodex, reminders, and notes. This one gets a lot of pushback because, for instance, people need to have the notes that they put up on the refrigerator with a magnet. Notes for the family, grocery shopping lists, different reminders. Rolodex. I'm not sure that anyone uses Rolodex anymore, but this used to be a requirement to set up an office. Used to be that you want to, find a particular person based on their last name, starting with the letter O-M, and then look it up that way. But today, with so much machine assistance, with so much sophistication in applications like, address book, contacts, stuff like that, it doesn't seem necessary anymore. I can also share that we used to have the honey-do list. Guys pretty much all, married guys pretty much all know what that is. The honey-do list is a list of things, honey-do this, honey-do that. So then the husband has to go through that list. And, women don't like it when men are just sitting around doing nothing. So the wife will make sure that there's something for you to do. Guys are pretty good myself included, as sitting around and, the wife is like, what are you doing? Well, nothing. Okay, well, women can't stand that. They really need to get you to do, what about the weeds in the front yard? You promised that you would take care of them. What about this? What about that? So I always say that Beauty and the Beast, right? At the very end, when it's happily ever after, and I'll say, no, that's when the fun really begins, because Beauty, Belle, is going to be like, okay, Beast, here are the things that you have to do today. You promised to take me shopping. You haven't done that yet. You promised to do the dishes today. It's your turn, honey. Stuff like that. So for us, we actually don't have the physical honeydew list anymore. For us, it's all put into the cloud. So we're sort of a cloud computing honeydew family. And it's actually very handy because it's completely freeform and we can get to it with any device, whether it's a computer or laptop or tablet or phone. So anytime we remember something, we'll type something in and add to the list. And then we get to move things around. We'll get to schedule them for the right day. And then when that day comes, I'll check it and I'll know, okay, these are the missions that I need to accomplish, So I have my orders. So I don't really need physical lists anymore, and same with everything else. Most everything now has been reduced to electronic virtual form. So what about coupons and articles? I'm a little bit behind the times. So yesterday, Saturday, was actually the first time ever that I had a supplantation coupon in my cell phone. So when I went to supplantation, I'm very excited. I'm holding up the coupon. Hey, I actually did not bring the clip coupon like I always do. I felt like so much a part of today's technology revolution just by being able to present the supplantation coupon on my smartphone. So yeah, that's and it was no problem. I see other people do it all the time. So finally, I got to do it myself. And I don't know if you guys remember, but there used to be this hobby called scrapbooking, that you would create a scrapbook and it's all the things that you like. You would, clip out newspaper articles that you find interesting, pictures you like, and just, glue them into your scrapbook. After a while, it's actually pretty interesting. I kind of miss that. I used to do it for a while, but I find that I don't do that anymore. Instead, what I'm doing now is that if I encounter something on the internet that I find interesting, I'll save a link, or I'll, copy and paste the article into like an overall collection of notes. Different people have different strategies, but basically, I don't need a scrapbook anymore, and I don't need a drawer full of coupons that I still haven't used yet. So file cabinets. I'm, again, behind the times here. I still have file cabinets full of documents that accumulated from before, but smart people nowadays are definitely just, all they're doing, they're taking a photo of a particular document, and that's it. Save it to the cloud. You don't need to deal with that anymore. You won't lose it. It's backed up in multiple locations. It's encrypted with your password, so nice and safe and private and secure. There are still quite a few people that don't really trust putting something in virtual form in cloud storage, but the more you find out, the more you learn about how security is done, then the more you realize that when it's done properly, it's actually a lot safer that way than in physical form. So my mother she used to enjoy having this photo album. She puts in different photos, rearrange them according to category, and she likes to write up little captions for the photos. That's her hobby. Well, I noticed that she doesn't do that anymore. My mom doesn't do that anymore. The reason is because in her online storage for photos, she's got thousands of photos. So the moment we all switched away from old-fashioned cameras and film, remember the film, you could take like 32 pictures and that was it. Today, digital cameras take hundreds, thousands of pictures. In fact, you can take dozens of pictures of any one particular scene and a shot and then select the best. So with that many pictures, she can no longer do the photo albums that she used to do. She doesn't need to anymore, and she doesn't really have the time to handle that many photos. So definitely the world has changed. So I'm just trying to make a point here with this slide that as we continue on with life, we find that there are more and more things we don't need anymore. Even if you are totally set against the idea of decluttering, I gotta tell you, the world is changing. The entire world is becoming less cluttered, more virtualized. So at some point, you're gonna be dragged along with everyone else to have less. Have less in a sense, have less physical objects, but have more in terms of the accumulated data of your life, but they're just saved in a way that is not taking up physical space. So lastly, I used to have this. I don't know if anybody knows what Thomas Guide is. It's a book, spiral bound. I used to have the 1996 Thomas Guide to the city of Los Angeles and Orange County. So that's the book that I kept in my car. So if I'm lost somewhere out there, driving through the streets of Southern California, I'll reach for the Thomas Guide. I'll try to figure out where I am and use that to bring me home. So what about today? Whatever since that time, remember, I had my Thomas Guide back in the days when all we had online was MapQuest. So today it's become much more sophisticated. Later on, when the GPS devices came out, boy, that was interesting. I went ahead and bought one. So the Thomas Guide was no longer necessary. The GPS not only knew exactly where I was, but also could guide me street by street, turn by turn, to have me go, take me where I want to go. And now, even the GPS devices have disappeared. Why is that? And does anyone know what I'm talking about when I say GPS has disappeared? It's because, like everything else, it's also gone into the phone. So with the phone, you actually get better GPS than the old dedicated GPS devices. You get real-time traffic updates. You get software that's smart enough that, oh, there's an accident on the 405, so get off on the next exit and take the following certain street until you are beyond the accident and then get back on the freeway. So it's that smart. So these are all examples of things that are disappearing. So everything here, photo albums, filing cabinets, they're all vanishing one by one. So to sort of reinforce that idea, I realized that many people who are listening to this presentation and the people who will be looking at it, listening to it online at YouTube and perhaps the MP3 recording, they won't really know. If they're the younger generation, they may not know what I'm talking about when I say white pages or yellow pages. So that used to be a fixture in everybody's life. We used to get these big books, yellow pages, white pages, all the time, and literally it's yellow. And within, when you open it up, you get business listings. So today, that idea seems incredibly quaint because why wouldn't I just, go to the internet and find out who is available in my local area? Need a handyman, need a plumber, no problem, just go there. There's a whole bunch of different websites that you can use for that. You get reviews, you get feedback from other people. You can't do that with Yellow Pages. By the combined review of all your neighbors, you get a sense of how good or bad a particular handyman or plumber is. Whatever you need, gardening, babysitting, dog walking, whatever it is, somebody is out there offering that service, and somebody's out there with, tens of reviews to tell you exactly how they are. So what about this right here? Telephone booth. Now, when was the last time you went into a telephone booth? For me, I have not used a telephone booth for probably, I want to say 20 years, maybe. I don't even know if there are working telephone booths around the city anymore. No idea, because it's so convenient now. Everybody carries communication devices around all the time. So telephone booths are definitely on the way out, which creates a problem. And the problem is, where's Superman gonna change if there are no telephone booths, right? You're gonna impede Superman getting ready on his next rescue mission. So that's bad news. But then come to think of it, how was the telephone booth helping Superman in the first place? I mean, you see right through it, so there's no privacy. What's the difference between, Superman going into the telephone booth to change versus just changing anywhere else on the spot, on the street? Anyhow, I digress. So that is also disappearing, much to the consternation of Superman. So I want to bring out this progression. As I mentioned, the cell phone is a mighty device that is consolidating so many things that we used to have separately. But the smartphone, the cell phone, did not used to be the device that we know today. Long time ago, it was just a phone with a rotary dial. It was also back in the days when communication, the phone calls, it started to be, there was an expression no longer used, hey, it's your dime. It's on your dime, because it took a dime to make a telephone call. So when people call and say they want to talk, you might say, well, okay, well, it's on your dime. You're the one spending 10 cents to make a phone call. Now we take for granted that communication is fast and convenient and virtually free. So before, it used to be that. So that was we were so used to it, we were used to the idea that a long distance phone call was very costly. So that if you had a long distance phone call, you would make it a point to be around for that. You would wait for that. Oh, this is a phone call from another state, another country, another continent. You want to be available to take that phone call. So then cellular phones became available, and I have this picture here of a very bulky cell phone. But this is actually not the cell phone that I knew when they first came out. The cell phone that I knew when they first came out was things that you had to carry. Got a handle on it. It's a big box, big and heavy, and there's an antenna that comes out, a bigger version of what you see here. And only the wealthy people could afford to have a cell phone at the time, and they carry that around like a briefcase. So that was already pretty incredible, because this thing right here needed to be hooked up, needed to be connected to the telephone network. The cell phone that you carry around with a handle it wasn't necessary to plug that in anywhere, make a phone call no matter where you happen to be. So that was already amazing. And then this came out, and then it's like, well, this is only a tiny fraction of the size of the cell phone that I needed to carry around. So that's amazing. But then we look at that. Remember, this is just back in the 80s, not that long ago. And we had these phones to replace that, and wow, now it's small enough to slip into a pocket. So this is already verging on what we thought will become reality one day in a science fiction world like Star Trek. So you could actually, with a flip phone, flip it open like Captain Kirk and then communicate with someone else. So that was already very sci-fi. That was already so high-tech. But then now we look at it and it's like, gee, what are you going to do with the screen that size? And why do you need these actual buttons anyway? They just take up a lot of space. And that screen, so dim, you can hardly see anything on it. How am I going to play my games if I had a screen like this? No, this is what I need. So things are changing again. This is even becoming smaller and smaller. So The challenge that I'd like to ask everyone is to envision all this as a Tao process. Tao process from the very bulky and unwieldy to the small and smaller yet and even smaller, and then use that as a way to think about what's probably going to happen in the future. What do you guys think? Any smaller? Well, we're already seeing a couple of things. We have today Google Glasses with which you can make phone calls. Glasses instead of a smartphone. We have a watch. You know, we have the little Apple Watch, Android Watch devices that can make phone calls, like Dick Tracy, the Dick Tracy cartoon that used to seem so advanced. So even this is not the end of this progression. There's more. So in the future, perhaps all you need is that the phone itself will be built into earphones that you plug into your ears, and then you simply talk. And then after that, at some point, there's going to be technology that enables you to just talk. When you talk, the person you want to talk to will hear what you're saying, even when they're very far away. So technology getting smaller, disappearing, becoming less and less. The overall progression of the world, hence the Tao, is in that direction, in that progression. Less and less until it doesn't exist anymore. For another example of that, all you have to do is see this. That's a shelf full of encyclopedia volumes. That was replaced on a CD, and this is not the scale. So the actual comparison in size is that this is only maybe a quarter of what I'm showing here that replaces a whole shelf full of volumes. And what about now? Well, it doesn't end there. We don't even use Encarta anymore. Look at that. It says Encarta 2004. It is now 2018. It is now 14 years later. Whatever happened to that CD that contains encyclopedia? Well, nobody uses them anymore. You want to find anything, you pull out your phone. That's your encyclopedia. That's your connection to the World Wide Web, to as much information as you need. In fact, way more information than you could actually use. And it's constantly being updated. Not like a printed volume that has to be updated, maybe annually, maybe once every few years. You know, when you get on the internet, sure, there's bad information, there's misinformation, but the good sources of information are constantly updated, almost in real time. So again, with both what's here and what's here, I want to point out to everyone that things are getting smaller, lighter, tinier, and then disappearing altogether. You know, like they don't exist anymore, but they're still out there. So remember, all of this is the Tao process of work. Even if you don't want to reduce complexity in your life, you're going to have to, because the whole world is going in that direction, whether people realize it or not. So back in the 90s, there's an inventor, scientist, Ray Kurzweil. He made 147 predictions about where technology is going to be in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. 147 predictions, most of them. So 9 times out of 10, he was right. He extrapolated from what he observed before and predicted into looking ahead into the future. Many people disagreed with him because they could not see how he could be right. One of the predictions that he made, one of the 147, was that computers will disappear. So then people look at the world and say, hey, look, we still have so many computers. They haven't disappeared. You were wrong with your prediction. When in fact, he was actually right, because computers as they knew it back in the 90s, they're mostly not around anymore. There are way more smartphones today than there are laptops and desktops combined. So definitely, computers that we knew from before are on their way out. So all these things we have talked about, camera and film, has gone into phone, glasses like Google glasses. Mainframe has become personal computers, and they got smaller as a laptop, and now mostly phone. Phones are being used most often in the world today as computing devices. Stereo system, MP3 player, again, phone shows up again. And smart speaker, as I mentioned, very handy. Hard drive, floppy drives, optical drives, all these different drives going to storage today, a lot of it is USB flash memory, or flash memory inside the computer is an SSD, a solid state drive, and they can disappear too as more and more stuff is stored in the cloud. So over and over again, we see this Tao process reducing everything to nothing, or what seems like nothing. So think about how the music service, how the data stored in the cloud, that's sort of like the void, the emptiness of the Tao. There's nothing there, but then it's got everything. Nothing and everything. Okay, so moving on to the rest of Tao Te Ching, let's talk about this line here. Dims the glare. What does that mean? So start out by examining the external real world aspect of it, the material world aspect. Any source of brightness, this is in the world in which we live, any light, any candle, any torch, fireplace, whatever the source of illumination may be, it's going to have to go out or dim in brightness at some point. Fire dies down, smolders as embers. Even a star like our sun, it eventually burns through all of its hydrogen fuel. As much as there is, it's going to be used up at some point. So the bottom line is that no physical source of illumination can last forever. It's gonna burn out. That's a certainty. That's the Tao process at work. So in eternity, everything will go out. In the internal aspects, what does it mean to dim the glare? Well, the easiest way to understand this line is to extrapolate from the previous two lines. Previous two lines had to deal with blunting the sharpness and resolving complexity and disputes. So there's a common thread running through this narrative from the beginning of this chapter to this line. Reduce sharpness, smooth things over, resolve conflicts. So what about dim the glare? It becomes easy to see what the glare represents. The glare would be like conflict. It would be like sharpness. So we have to reduce sharpness, resolve conflict, and then dim the glare because of the following. So sharpness, why reduce the sharpness? Why blunt the sharpness? Well, a sharp tongue can hurt others. You may not realize you're hurting other people with your sharp tongue when you are telling them something about themselves, maybe less than flattering. Maybe you don't intend to hurt them. And yet you do, because the sharpness of what you say is cutting people, injuring people, maybe wounding their ego. So just like that, arrogant people can also cause discomfort when they direct the sharpness of the mental brilliance against other people, like for instance in debate. So I would say that everybody who cultivates the Tao, if you are interested in the Tao in the first place, it means you have a certain amount of mental brilliance. That is, people who are interested in the Tao are usually pretty smart people. So I can say that. I think that's a fair statement. Interest in the Tao is not everyday, it's not usual, it's not average, it's above average. It's out of the ordinary. You guys tend to be highly intelligent. But because you are highly intelligent, when you encounter those who are less intelligent, it's hard to resist the temptation to direct the sharpness of your mental brilliance against other people. They don't know what they're talking about. You have to set the record straight. You have to tell them what is right from wrong. You have to inform. You have to educate. all of which will be ways to appeal to your own ego as you put yourself in a higher position than them. So this line is cautioning everybody, all of us, hey, don't be so full of yourself. Don't be so full of yourself that you use your knowledge to showcase yourself, Look how great I am. I have a degree. I have an academic degree, and it's a higher academic degree than yours. Therefore, I'm smarter than you are. I'm up here. You're down there. See me up here? You're down there. See the distance between us? Me up, you down. Ha ha. That's what we're talking about here. That is the glare. It's blinding. It makes people uncomfortable. So putting people down, and a lot of times, as brilliant as people are that are in that position, as smart as they are, they don't even know that they're doing it. That's because it is oftentimes very difficult to see yourself clearly. More often, it's better to have something like this be pointed out so you can mentally take a step back, examine your own actions, your own words, and then realize that, wow, I have to dim my glare. I have to harmonize it. I have to quiet down. I have to reduce the sharpness so I don't inadvertently hurt the people that I care about, the people that are around me. Thus, last bullet, to bring it all together, to dim the glare, is to remain humble. Easier said than done. But we have to realize that this is what the line is talking about, and we have to live that particular truth. Okay, so the fourth line, the last of this collection, is to mixes dust. So we'll start with the external aspects. In time, everything disintegrates, becomes dust, and gets mixed with everything else. We know that's true in the material world. So what does that suggest in the internal world in terms of teaching from the Tao, in terms of spiritual cultivation? To mix with the dust means to live as part of the world, not apart from the world. That is, spending time with other people, because the theme of humility continues. Because Tao cultivators do not see themselves as being a cut above from the rest of humanity. So they do not isolate themselves from civilization, like live as a hermit in a mountain. So this line tells them to participate fully in life, mixed with the dust, in the community, enjoying the company of others, to mix with the dust. Now, when you understand that level of meaning, there is a tendency for people to then use that as an excuse. Like, oh, I'm just mixing with the dust. I'm doing what people do. So whatever bad habits they have, I get to have them too, because I'm mixing with the dust. Well, this is not meant to be used as an excuse to mix with the dust in that way. Indeed, in spiritual cultivation, there's an important saying that you can be like a lotus flower, that you emerge from mud and yet not be tainted by the dirt. So I want to make sure everyone sees that particular saying. In Mandarin, 出污泥而不染. When I look it up online, I also see variations like 出淤泥而不染. But let's stick to 出污泥而不染. That's the way I learned it. So that's what I'm going to stick to. So we got 6 characters here. I think we have just enough time to talk about this, and then we have to do our summary for today. So it's depicting the lotus flowers in a pond that's growing out of mud, and yet it's beautiful. So here you will see a stylized version of the Mandarin characters. It looks a little bit different because this is, as I mentioned, stylized. It's just like how a lot of times in calligraphy in English, you can also write letters in a very stylized way. but it's the same character. Most of the characters, you can recognize them as being exactly the same. So 6 characters, 出污泥而不染. So let's break them down one by one. 出, to come out of, to emerge from, that's the first character. Second character, 污, dirty, filthy, that's the second character there. 泥, third character, mud. That's because at the bottom of the pond, there's mud. But, that's a connective character. 不, that's a negation, no, not. And then last character, 染, to take on the color of what you are next to be contaminated, to be tainted. Okay, so when you put all of these together, you get the translation. The meaning is to grow out of dirt, to emerge from dirt without being tainted by dirt. So specifically for you and me, what it means is that your internal cultivation does not have to be affected by your external environment. You can be mixing with dust and not be dusty because 出污泥而不染. In a similar way, preacher Billy Graham recently passed away, and he had one of his favorite teachings drawn from the Bible was to be in this world but not of this world. So he would talk about how the world is full of sin. We have to be part of this world. We live in this world, but we don't have to be of this world. And in his expression, human beings that follow Jesus' teachings belong to heaven. So everyone, all the Christians are of heaven, that they have a higher calling, so they can be in the world, on earth, without taking on the simple aspects of earthly existence, So that's a similar expression that you can emerge from your environment and still look after the cultivational aspects of your spirituality. So we are now getting close to the end of our talk together today. I'd like to ask you to hang on to the image of the lotus as I jump ahead to the end. So previously, we talked about the first 2 items to blunt the sharpness and to resolve, to unravel the knot, which was to resolve disputes or to simplify complexity. Today, we covered 和其光, to dim the glare. So remember, in the world, fire burns down eventually. The glare of bright lights will never last. So let your light, the light of your mind, the light of your intelligence be a soft illumination, not a blinding glare, not a blinding brightness. And then lastly, to mix with the dust. In the physical universe, everything disintegrates in time, becomes dust, all get mixed together. So for your internal cultivation, remember, be with people, get involved in your community, be a participant, not a spectator.
Let's go ahead and do the meeting ending ritual, everybody. 起立，面向佛堂，持架深鞠躬，一鞠躬，再鞠躬，3鞠躬，持架各位顶传11鞠躬，斜翻1鞠躬。Well done, everybody. Thank you so much.